This is another edition of Head On here on Shaw TV. I'm your host, Ian Holmes. On today's episode, talking about youth here in Nanaimo and their potential more involvement in local politics here in Nanaimo. There's a push for a Youth Advisory Council to be established. That'd be a push being made by City Councillor George Anderson. He's one of my guests on the program today. Also, Claudia Thompson from Wellington Secondary School to provide some insight from the youth perspective. And we'll get into a little bit more about the importance of having young people in elected positions. And what about youth? Do they even care about local politics? We'll get into all that and more. And George Anderson, Nanaimo City Councillor, young man, just 22 years old in his first term on Nanaimo City Council, to provide some insight on this issue. George, you've made this push for a Youth Advisory Council to be established. What do you think this can accomplish if it does come to fruition?
Well, the hope is that we have a platform for young people to be involved and engage with local government issues, because these issues affect them on a day-to-day basis, whether it be our transit services, our roads, our sidewalks. These are things that young people are going to be affected with. Also our infrastructure. In the future, costs regarding our infrastructure are going to be rising, and it's important that young people are informed about these things and also have a voice as to how we move forward as a community. And so if we establish a Youth Advisory Council, we can have young people engaged with council and also providing recommendations about how young people would like to see our community move forward in a positive direction.
Claudia, you're on student council at Wellington Secondary School, so you're involved on this from a scholastic standpoint.
Very.
George pushing for this, Youth Advisory Council. I take it you're on side with this idea? What kind of potential do you think this has?
We think it's a great idea because really it's our future that we're making decisions for right now, and we'd like to have involvement in that and make decisions. We really want to be able to have a sustainable agriculture and things like that in our future, and right now we would like to make those decisions for ourselves. Like just going on right now, we've got food forests and green walls going on at just my school alone, and we push for, Aviva funds, we push for things, but really we need the help of councilmen and the council right now to make that happen and to have ideas come forward from ourselves for our future.
So you think having this avenue through City Hall, a Youth Advisory Council, could sort of promote some of these ideas a little bit more?
Yeah, I do, and I think that we could make these ideas grow and make them bigger and have a bigger impact on what we do right now.
My next question, though, is about youth and politics. We're talking off air a little bit, the both of us here, about many youth don't really care about politics. Even friends of mine, sort of the 30 and under crowd, a lot of people not really engaged, don't know, and quite frankly don't really care about local politics. That seems to be a bit of an issue. And I'll start with you on that, Claudia. Do youth even really care? You obviously do. You have a big stake in this. You're engaged, you're young, obviously you're motivated, but a lot of your peers seemingly aren't.
Yeah, no, there's not enough people care, and I think that having this council will push people to be more involved and to care a little bit more about what's going on right now and for our future.
George, I'll pitch that to you. You have a lot of experience. You kind of an underdog to get elected as a 20-year-old. Surprised many getting elected, and here you are now on Nanaimo City Council. Some of your peers, friends that you know, where do you think the link between youth and local politics stands here in Nanaimo?
Well, and I would clarify, being the underdog, I was only 29 votes from third, beating out a lot of the incumbents and former mayors and councillors.
But certainly an unknown commodity coming in is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I would mention that. I think that young people are engaged and they do care, but they don't have a way for themselves to actually get involved in the process right now. If every young person who I've spoken to who uses transit believes that there are issues with transit, but they don't know how to communicate with council as to say, we need to see you be more proactive in regards to transit services in our community. So if we have this platform, they'll be able to critically go to council and say, you know what, this is something that's important. If you want young people to stay in our community, these are the things that you need to focus on, because we see every single year young people who go to Vancouver, go to Alberta, and they're leaving Nanaimo, and that's something that we don't want to see continue to happen in our community.
So from what I'm gleaning from what you're saying, George, this mechanism of a youth advisory council, you believe having that set up will sort of inspire some of these ideas to come forth, not sort of a desperate plea to get them in. You think there is that foundation there to generate some of these ideas from young people in our community?
Well, it's absolutely amazing, because since I've been on council, one of the things that I've focused on is trying to get young people engaged and involved. And I can tell you the phone calls that I have actually received from young people about the various issues in our community that they think we should focus on. And that's been an inspiration for me, in that they are actually getting involved in the local government process, because this is the level of government that affects people on a day-to-day basis. And so young people do need to be at the center of our politics at local government, because they're going to be the ones who end up bearing the responsibilities of the decisions that council makes today. And
you're nodding your head at that suggestion, Claudia.
Yes, it's a great idea, because it's not that we don't want to be involved in politics, it's that we don't have the great enough communication to be able to be involved enough to make a difference.
Interesting. The importance of having young people in elected positions. I think this is a really interesting topic. We have the Senate expenses scandal. We have some older people involved in politics, clearly abusing the system, and young people see this stuff, and I wonder what the reaction is to this. And I would think that's important, to get some new blood into the system and bring in some new ideas. George, speak to that. I mean, you have a lot of experience in this realm as well, being a young councillor at the City of Nanaimo. How important is it to get new lawmakers into the fold?
Well, I think if you look at Nanaimo City Council, there's almost a 39 to 40 year gap between me and the next youngest person. So almost every single person on council's retired. Not that that's a negative thing, but it would be nice to have a more diverse group of individuals who are there. Because if you look at myself, when I was elected to council, I had no other prior attachments. I didn't have unions who were connected to me like some of the members of council, or business who were coming to me saying, we want you to do these type of things. I go and make my decisions based on evidence, and that's how I make my decisions. I would also say that Jack Layton, for example, in his letter to Canadians, wrote quite clearly that young people need to be at the heart of our economy, our political life, and our plans for the present and the future. And I couldn't agree more with that, because it's so important that young people do get involved and engaged, because, as I said, they're going to be the ones who end up bearing these costs, and also the plans that councils of today make.
It's important to get new blood in. Claudia, I really want to hear your opinion on this issue. I believe, 3 years experience on student council at Wellington. How do you see this as important of having a continuous new crop of young people at various levels of councils coming in up in the fold?
Yeah, it's fresh ideas, and that's really what we need. We need a big variety of older ideas and new ones that come together, and a big collaboration of what's really important and get down to it. I feel that having us come up and be in a youth council gets us ready to take that step into being the future's politicians, and being in charge of what happens with what is to come.
And if I may just add to that as well, that young people have a unique perspective. If we look at our committee structure as well, young people are not represented in our committee. So this will give young people the opportunity to be able to have their say, and actually have it done in a meaningful way, because this in no way is intended to have young people go out and do the fundraising for a new skateboard park. This is for young people to have meaningful engagement as to how our city moves forward in a positive direction. So young people do need to be in elected office, and hopefully this will be the platform that gets them to move into that direction.
Yeah, I was just going to add that point. I mean, it could be a nice go-between for people who may be interested in politics, as maybe a future aspiration, George, to get engaged in some local issues, help out the community, and potentially serve at some point in the future.
Yes, I would hope so, and that is one of my hopes, that young people will have the opportunity to learn about the local government process, perhaps even engage their family and their friends as saying, you know what, this is actually really important and you need to be involved, because the last election we had a 26.8% turnout, and there's 68,000 electorates in Nanaimo, and only 17,000 of them went out to vote. And so hopefully this will be a catalyst for change that will get more people engaged in local government.
I know right now Elections BC is looking at potential of online voting, and I think it's just a matter of time till that comes in, and I think that maybe kind of works in concert with fitting in with young people, hey George, to get people into voting, maybe getting those numbers up and getting people just more engaged in general in the process. Yeah. Claudia.
We use a lot of social networking sites nowadays to spread the word between different things, and I think that that's a great idea to be able to use the online voting. And also, like you said, the more that we know and that we learn about politics, the more we're going to have that initiative to want to go and vote and to raise that 28% to a better number.
This idea of a youth advisory council, sticking with this theme of getting younger people in elected positions. George, is this like, did you hear a push from people in the community to have this as an idea? You bringing this motion towards council, where did this sort of thrust come from?
Well, over the time that I've been on council, I spoke to young people. I've heard what their hopes, their aspirations are for our community. And as you can tell, I'm only one individual on council, and I have to be able to convince my colleagues to move forward in some other directions. We had an electronic town hall, which I proposed, which has won us one national award, which is the 4th time it's ever been presented to a municipality for community engagement, which we use social media for our budget and so on. And also we just recently won an award from Mystic, from Technology Institute as well. So these are the types of ideas that young people are bringing forward, and so we should be excited and we should be getting them involved, because this is what I've heard, and so I brought it forward to council to say, you know what, there's a group of unique people who have a really good perspective, and we should be harnessing the ideas that they have to promote our community in a positive direction.
A question geared towards you now, George, your political future. This is your first term in Nanaimo City Council. What do the cards hold for yourself personally with well, just over a year away now from the next civic election? Yeah,
well, as you said, we are a year away, and so I haven't been thinking about that. I've been thinking about how I can make positive changes for the future of our community. So I'll probably be making that decision come the spring or summertime of next year as to what my goal's going to be. If the people of Nanaimo want me to run again for council, I would be happy to. I've even had people say I should consider running for mayor in the next election, but I don't think that's something that I would look at doing right away. I'd want at least 2 terms on council, and I've also been approached by other federal leaders that I should consider running in a federal election. So I can tell you that politics, I probably will be involved in public life for a period of time in my life. I'm still young, so I still have that opportunity to do so.
What aspirations do you have? Is it at the local level, George? Is it, you mentioned federal, there's a new riding coming into Vancouver Island here federally. There's an opportunity there as well. What are you feeling? What, are you leaning a particular way, whether it be civic or a higher level of politics?
Well, I can tell you I've had the opportunity, as you know, to serve as a councillor for the city of Nanaimo, and I've enjoyed it. I've been happy to be part of a council and regional district that has added 8,500 transit hours for our citizens and has been able to promote better community engagement. So I've enjoyed the local level. If the doors open and people want me to move to a different level of government, I'm happy to do so, but it's really up to the community that I serve, and that's the reason that I got engaged in politics in the first place, was to serve the people of our community. So it's really up to them. Okay, we'll have to stay tuned. And Claudia, what about your political future, if there is one after your school days here at Wellington?
There might be. I've got quite a few options, and I'm choosing to keep that open for now, but I am really enjoying being on student council and getting to work and coming up with ideas to better improve what we have right now. And yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds.
And lastly, before we wrap up the program, George, just update our viewers on the situation with this staff report. They're working on the details on the potential of a youth advisory council. Yes, that's correct, Ian. So what's happening right now, council passed a motion unanimously saying they want to see a report on how to develop a youth advisory council. So the next step is our staff are working through what potentially would be the budget, what the age range would be, because in some places youth is considered 14 to 25, some other places it's 18 to 35. So they're going to put all of those things together and come back to council and say, here's what we believe would be a made in Nanaimo solution to getting young people involved and engaged in the local government process. And from there, council would make a vote
based on that decision. And I can tell you, just because the report comes forward doesn't mean that council will adopt it. So hopefully members of our community will let council know that this is a good idea and a strong priority for our community, and that we should be getting young people involved and engaged in the process.
George Anderson, Nanaimo City Councillor. Claudia Thompson, grade 10 student, Wellington Secondary School, also involved with student council at Wellington. My two guests. Guys, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thanks
for having us.
All things youth here at this edition of Head On, and it looks like there's certainly a lot of enthusiasm to have youth more involved in politics locally. Thanks so much for enjoying or tuning in for another, hopefully you enjoyed it, another edition of Head On here on Shaw TV. I'm your host, Ian Holmes.